All right. Welcome, everyone, to Velocity Work Live. We have a super special guest today, Jay Ruane. Very pumped that you were willing to do this. So, hi, Jay.
Hi, how you doing? So good to see you. Unfortunately, we didn't get to spend a lot of time together in St. Louis. There was so much going on, but
Yeah.
even a few moments with you was great. So I was looking forward on my calendar to getting to spend some time one-on-one with you today.
Oh, yeah, me too. Definitely. I have a lot of questions for you, and I thought I would explain first. There's a concept that I've been talking about and focusing on this fall, and the reason I'm going to explain the concept to you is because this will help you understand why I wanted you on the show.
Okay.
So there is a concept by a man named Jonathan Fields. I heard him explain this, and he's talking about you can apply this to other areas of life, but when you're working on business and when you're building a business, there are 3 stages, and he calls one of them simple grace. One of them is the second stage is the unfortunate middle, and the third stage is complex grace. They're not all necessary. You get to decide how you want to do this, but simple grace is when you're starting up. It's you and an assistant and maybe just you, and you're just cranking, and there's a simplicity to that. And you can make a decent living doing that. But not everybody wants to stay there. And so if you want to move in a direction and grow, in this case, your firm, you have to go through what he calls the unfortunate middle, because you have to introduce complexity into the business and grow and scale. And there's a lot in there, but eventually you can get yourself to the place where you can hire so that people can handle some of the pieces of complexity. And then you get yourself to this stage of complex grace, which is where you can actually step back and experience some grace, even with the complexity and how the business has grown and the scale and all of that. And so it was interesting hearing him talk about it. And I decided on this show, I wasn't interested in talking to people unless they had a taste of or a sense of complex grace, or at least have in the past. And the reason I say have in the past is because, like, the guy that's describing this, he's built many businesses, and he has to go through the unfortunate middle with each one. And then he gets himself to complex grace. And so I loved the concept, and it's actually not easy to find people who have experienced that, or not that there can't be improvement, not that you don't want to grow, but there's a difference between the people I have on this show and a typical law firm owner. And it's not that law firm owners can't get there. They totally can get there in their own way. And it can, but I think everyone is striving for how to have the firm that they want to have, and the space that they want to have, and the life that they want to have. And I don't know if you would say that you've reached this pinnacle, but I do think that you represent that for people. So what are your thoughts?
So I'm close, and I have made very conscious decisions through the life of my firm to sort of get me to the place where I am today. And I've been over the last couple of years. I certainly would have been a lot closer had COVID not hit. Because the thing that's interesting about COVID, well, let me tell you a little bit about my vision for my firm. I grew up with a father who was a trial lawyer, who was a phenomenal lawyer. And I got into the same area that he practiced in, which is criminal defense. I knew right away I was never going to be able to match his skill set in criminal trials, nor did I have the passion for that. I mean, I could do them. I'm fairly good at them. I've gotten my fair share of not guilty verdicts. I just knew that I was always going to be compared to my father if I did exactly what he did. And I didn't really want that for myself. But what I did want to do is get into an area where I could help people, number one, and also to create a lifestyle firm, because I saw the life that he had, which was work all day at trial, come home, have dinner with his family. And dinner, in my house was very important. We always ate together. But then after dinner, he would sit back down at the dining room table, have a pot of tea, maybe a cookie or two, and then he would work until he went to bed. And I would be doing my homework. I'd come downstairs. A big deal for me was to make his pot of tea every night. But I did not want that. I thought maybe I was just lazy. Like I didn't want to work the amount of work that he did. But it wasn't laziness, because I didn't want to do the work that he wanted to do, but I have no problem doing the work that I want to do late at night. So what I set out early on to do was to create sort of a lifestyle firm that allowed me to break away from the firm, allowed me
Mhm.
to avoid doing the things I don't like to do
Mhm.
and, as we scaled, but also gave me a much more free time and much more financial security than he ever had. I mean, he was living sort of feast or famine as a criminal trial lawyer. You wait for the money to come in, then you spend it. And I wanted more predictable revenue because I like nicer things. Money is a motivator for me, unlike my father. My father is like a Picasso or a Michelangelo. You know, give him some paints and a canvas, and he won't come up for air. He won't eat. He just loves to sit and do his thing. Whereas I like to go to the Ritz-Carlton and go to the spa with my wife and have massages and eat 5-course meals and that type of thing. So money, I need money to be able to do that. But I set out early on to say, you know, more important than that money was if and when I do have kids. I started having kids later than many. I didn't start till I was 36. Um, that I wanted to be able to spend time with them. And all throughout this, I had been saying to my father, who was my partner, to my other contract partners that I have, to employees, the long-term employees that have been with me, is that, you know, you're not going to make $1 million a year working at my law firm. It's just not going to happen. But you'll have dinner
Mm.
with kids every night. You'll be able to take off and go to things like Little League or dance recitals, or, you know, you want to volunteer in the school, you'll be able to do that. We'll
Mhm.
make that work for you. And the long-term employees that have been with me have really appreciated that. And I have, unfortunately, I did a bad job with communicating that to some employees and taking care of them so that they left. And that was probably my unfortunate middle. I had a lot of churn, a lot of turnover
Mm.
when I had trained people, and it was a compensation issue
Mm.
because the revenue wasn't there.
Mhm.
It was a management issue because I don't really like to manage people.
Mhm.
And so, you know, but all along I've been striving to build the firm that I have today. And as of last week, I'm sort of elevating myself to a CEO role, really rarely getting involved in any of the day-to-day operations. And we're going to see how that goes for the near future.
It's so awesome. I'm so excited for you. And because it feels like you're built for it. Just what I know of you and the conversations I have gotten to have with you feels like this is you're about to shine.
I hope so. And I mean, the reality is for me is, you know, sort of, I've had a sense of what I want my vision to be. And I've been working towards it. And now that
Mhm.
it's within reach, I have to almost, you know, acknowledge that it is within reach. And I don't have to work,
Mm.
you know, I still
Mhm.
have to work at it, but I don't have to work as hard to get to that point. And now I have to say, okay, that was your vision, dude. Now you need to live that vision because you
Yes.
built to get you this far. You know, and I'm doing that fully cognizant of the fact that 10 years from now, my vision may change.
Mhm.
I'm knocking on the door of 50, of being 50. When I'm knocking on the door of being 60, I may say, I want back in.
Mm.
I want to try cases again because, you know, my kids are grown at that point,
Mm.
and that type of thing. So it's really about establishing your sort of a manageably, you know, a vision that's manageable in the near term, and going for that, knowing full well that you can modify that vision. But really, there's an overarching idea that I want to affirm. I want a career that sort of supports the things that I want to do.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure so many people listening to this identify with that. I think that well, actually, something I really appreciate that you said, because no one said it as explicitly as you just said it, but I'm in that camp, is that money does matter to me. Like, money is a motivator to me, and not because I think at some point I made the switch, and it was probably more gradual than I realized, but at some point it flipped to where all the stuff I had around money, like, well, if you have a lot of money, that there's some sort of sense of greed, or there's some sort of sense of selfishness with that. But here's what I've come to learn is that we are here to enjoy and play in life, and different things light different people up. To me, also, going to the Ritz to have a massage and going to stay at a really awesome place in the mountains and those kinds of things, it takes money. And that's the kind of stuff that I want to do. And of course you can give more of yourself to the world if all that's taken care of. And so I don't know. I love the way that you were just like, money is a motivator. I agree. And it's not the end all be all. And I don't get to the money by any means necessary, but it's a motivator for how I want to think about what I'm building. And I'm hoping that everybody, like people listening here that can identify with you and maybe with what I'm talking about too, just own it, man. Like I think you get there faster and you use your brain better if you do.
Yeah, it's difficult for me. I grew up in an inner city area. Didn't have a lot of money. I mean, I didn't go without food. I had, both parents worked. We did take a vacation every year. I'm not about to cry that I had a poor childhood, because I didn't. That's not what I'm saying. But I also know that there are certain things that I wanted to do that I couldn't do because the money wasn't there. And I wanted to get to a point where money really is an object, and it's interesting to me. And this is a challenge that I have as a parent now, because a couple of weeks ago I went to a couple of months ago I took my kids to a Yankee game. A couple of weeks ago I took my kids to a Jets game. And both times we were in a luxury suite. Now, both times we're in a luxury suite because I have a connection who has a friend who had I was big early on in my life in networking and developing relationships. And those relationships have gotten me wonderful experiences that I wouldn't be able to afford otherwise. So it's not always just about cash money, but it's about the wealth you get from being interconnected with people. And I've worked on that. And so I've been able to take my kids to these wonderful things. And it was interesting. I took my kids to a basketball game this past weekend, and they were wondering why, they were like, well, are we going to sit in a box? And I'm like, no, it's just going to be a regular basketball game. And they're like, well, we really would want to sit in a box. I'm like, yeah, so did I. But at 8 years old, I wanted to sit in a box. I had never done it. I didn't do it till I was in my 40s. And you guys got to do it early on in your life. So it's all down here from here, kids. I don't know what to tell you. You got to work hard to get to where you're at. But that's a struggle I have as a parent, is to make sure that I light that fire of hunger inside my kids, because they're getting stuff that I could only have dreamt about when I was their age. And so I have to try to find a way to balance that and make sure that they appreciate what it is that they get, because by their byproduct of being related to me. Because when I go to a Yankee game now, I like being in the luxury suites or in the nice seats. I don't want to sit in the nosebleeds. I've done that. I've been there. I've done that. And that's not a lifestyle I want anymore. I'd rather go to one game a year in great seats than go to 15 in the nosebleeds. I used to do 15 in the nosebleeds, and those days are behind me now. Maybe I'm just old and grumpy.
Yeah, that makes so much sense to me. And that's something I haven't had to think of yet. I also had kids later in life. So I have one's about to turn 2. And this is going to be a challenge that I haven't thought through yet.
It's funny. I talked to a friend of mine, and he's like, the best person for this is Shaquille O'Neal. Whenever he flies with his family, he sits in first class with his wife, and he puts his kids in the last row of the plane and coach. And they're like, but why do we have to sit in the back, Dad? We're rich. And he goes, no, I'm rich.
Yeah. You're
not rich. I'm rich. You're getting a free seat anywhere on the plane. Middle seat, last row. That's free. That's where you sit. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like you need to come up with a course. Like, get this under your belt. Then you can spit out a course for how to lessons that you can adopt as a parent.
Yeah, maybe that may be something I can fill with my free time now.
Yes, exactly. Well, okay. I would love to go back. Many people do know your story, but if you could just share.
Sure.
The firm that you have now, was that your first business?
Well, what do you define as business?
Well, it could have failed. That's still a business. Well, I don't know what you mean.
So, my first business was at 14.
Okay.
it was not necessarily the best business to be in, but like I said earlier, I grew up in an inner city area. And I went to sort of an exclusive all boys prep school in the next town over, Fairfield Prep. But I grew up in Bridgeport. I rode the bus from Bridgeport with the other kids from Bridgeport. And what I knew at Fairfield Prep was that the kids who lived in the rich suburbs wanted Playboys, but they didn't have the ability to get them. But the guy at the corner store bodega in Bridgeport had no problem selling 14-year-old Jay a $5.95 Playboy magazine. So my first business was buying Playboys in bulk and reselling them at my high school to 14 and 15-year-old boys for $30, $40, and $50 a pop.
Wow.
That was my first business. I found the demand, filled the demand, and it wasn't necessarily, I mean, this was back in the 80s. So this is a long time ago. The market's probably a lot different now, but that was my first business where I was hustling, making money.
Wow.
And so from there, it just, I guess I've always sort of found the prurient interests of suburban white folk, because then I became a DUI defense lawyer and catered to them that way when they had their foibles getting arrested. So that was my first business. And then I hustled my way through college. I had won an award from a local bank. I used my connection to the local to the bank to get a job as a summer teller for a couple of years. Then I went out and worked at a law firm in college and in law school, and I bartended and hustled at night doing that type of thing. So that was really sort of everything I did. And then became a public defender, sort of like a daily public defender for $100 a day for my first 2 years of practice. And then I hung a shingle, and a few months later joined up with my father. So that's sort of how I became something. But, I was always a hustler type of guy. I was the kind of guy who in college tried to know as many people as possible. Whenever there was a party, I was one of the first people called because I could rally a bunch of students to come to a house party and that type of thing. Personal networking was always important to me, and developing relationships with people. So that's really been my strength and helped me grow this business.
Okay. Yeah. So your father had his own firm.
Yes.
And that's what you joined after you did public defender work.
So what happened is that he had a firm. It was a firm like many people have, where he had a partner. He did criminal. His partner did civil. They shared expenses. They each ate their own, whatever they killed. It was really sort of a firm in name only. They didn't share books or anything like that. And I came out, and he had no work to give me. So he went ahead and said, hey, I'll make a connection for you to the public defender's office. I started hustling there. But I would hustle the hallway because I could at that time. And, people knew my father, and they might throw me a case that they didn't want for $500 or $1,000. So I was hustling the hallways. And then I got into a beef with my supervisor because I got passed over for a permanent job. And I quit on the spot. And then I went to my father and said, hey, I just quit. And he goes, well, good luck with that. What do you want me to do about it? I'm struggling to make my payroll every week. There's no job here for you, but there's a desk over in the corner. And if you remove the phone books that have stacked up over years, you can sit there and there you go. So that I kind of hung my own shingle, and I started actually developing business. And then when he and his partner had to renew their lease, his partner wanted to buy, he wanted to lease. And so they kind of just split up. And that's when my father and I joined together and started this firm.
Okay. What year was that?
So that was in 2000.
Okay.
In September of 2000.
So once the split happened, did you, I guess what I'm curious about is, you get in there, you clear off that desk, you're going to sit at that desk. You're essentially building a firm from scratch. It's not like, So then I guess I would love to know what that first year or two was like. Like what what was it like in terms, like, how did you drum up the business? And you probably relied on your relationships, but how did you drum up the business? And how quickly did you get to the place where you were cranking?
It took a while.
Mm,
The story goes something like this. So I hang the shingle in June of 2000. And so June of 2000, I'm out on my own and I'm trying to make it work. Um, I was starving. I stopped paying my student loans and just let them go and just accumulate and accumulate. And I don't recommend that for anybody, but I didn't have the money at that time to pay them. And so I was just ignoring them. I was living hand to mouth most of the time. If I would catch a $500 case or a $1,500 case that was going to make my car payment or my rent at the time. I'm not embarrassed because it was, my life. I luckily had a personal network of a lot of bartenders, that people that I had worked with. And when you're 25 years old and single, and trying to make it as a lawyer and you have no money, I would go to the bars that my friends were bartending at, and they would, oh, somebody returned this cheeseburger, here you go. Why don't you have it? And and here's a couple of beers on the house, type of thing. And so I would sit at the bar and talk to them and eat a dinner. And I would talk to the guy next to me and pass out my business card and that type of thing. I know my friends, I'm sure they put bacon on a burger and sent it to the table when the person specifically said no bacon, so that there was an extra burger that they could just give to me, because they were taking care of me. And I still have those relationships to this day. I still talk to those guys regularly. In fact, one texted me while we were on this call.
mm,
So those guys kept me fed. I had a bunch of roommates. I was driving an old beat up car, and there were plenty of nights where I was filled with doubt, saying, was I crazy? Why did I do this? I mean, I've taken on all this debt. I'm not making money. I'm not nearly, what I thought a lawyer would be. I mean, I went to school with the promise of, you get out of school, you get this job, you get paid a lot of money, and it's going to be awesome. It just didn't happen for me. So it took a while of grinding and making relationships and studying the craft and getting better in a particular niche that I was able to sort of exploit in my state, and develop a name for myself in the DUI defense niche, moving from general criminal to DUI. I spent a lot of time at seminars getting better at that, so I knew more than the next person. And then going to those seminars, I got to talk to other lawyers and find out what worked for them in marketing and what didn't work. The DUI defense community was really aggressive early on with internet marketing, because, you get arrested for DUI. It's not something you want to talk about.
mm,
So a lot of people went online. So I kind of rode the wave of the early internet, and that helped a lot. And it took me, probably 10 years before we had myself, my father, and two other lawyers. And then it was really probably about 2006, 2009, in that range, where things really started to hum.
mm,
So it was a long slide. It was a lot of years of, really trying to figure out how we were going to survive with business, till we got into a place where we were comfortable generating, $1 million a year that could support all the people that we had employed.
mm-hmm. What prevented you from going to join a firm where you knew you'd get a paycheck and you could get work?
Well, it's interesting. I knew I wanted to do criminal defense coming out of law school, because it's really, I knew I didn't fit in with civil firms, even personal injury firms. I just don't have the personality. I'm more of a street lawyer, kind of get along guy. I don't really like lawyers. I don't like talking to lawyers. I don't like talking to pretentious people, and a lot of people are impressed with themselves that they went to law school. I'm more likely to talk to a local drug dealer than I am a lawyer. And just knowing the people, I gravitate towards hustlers and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So when I first got out of law school, it was interesting. I got the list of the Criminal Defense Lawyers Association, and I sent my resume out saying, you may know who my father is. I'm looking for a job in criminal defense. I'd love to be able to work for you. And I got 100 rejection letters. Nobody was hiring at the time.
Mm.
Nobody. It was
Mm.
98. There was a legal recession back then, and I got some really nice rejection letters. Like, I wish I could give you a job. We've already hired. We've got an associate for a couple of years. It's not going to happen. And I remember giving a speech 3 years later to the criminal defense lawyers organization at a seminar where they brought me in to teach them about advanced DUI techniques, because I had started to make a name for myself and I was doing things. And I started my speech saying, it's nice to be here. There's so many great people in this room. And I called them all out. And I say, you probably are wondering why I called on all these people. I have rejection letters for all of these people when I begged them for a job 3 years ago. And now here I am teaching you how to do your job better. So I guess you lost out on a chance to have a great lawyer working for you, but I'm doing it on my own now. Ooh,
Wow.
that's.
Yeah.
So I think I would make a terrible employee. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I am not a good employee. I do things my own way. I do it when I want to do it. I'm terrible at following the systems in our office. I have to constantly force myself to do it because I don't. I'm a rule breaker, I guess. Is this? I
Yeah.
don't fit in. I don't fit in really. I think
Yeah.
that's the main thing is I don't really fit in anywhere. And I fit in the most at my firm, but there are plenty of days where I look at myself and I look at this law firm that I've created and I'm like, man, I really don't even fit in here.
Mm.
I got to find my place in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the reason I asked you that, like, when it's tough and it is a grind and you're hungry and you wish you could make your payments and all of that. I think, uh, I don't know that it's uncommon for people to be there at least for some period of time when they're starting up. And it's so tempting to get yourself out of that scenario because it's so uncomfortable and
Yeah,
you can't see that far in front of you. Like, what you want to create, but you can't even tell if you're doing it right. Like, whatever that means, right? So it's the
absolutely.
discomfort. People will just scoot because there isn't a sense of certainty that they want. But for you, it seems like the sense of certainty was there was more certainty for you doing your own thing, even if you hadn't cracked that nut, because you didn't belong over there. You knew you didn't belong there. And so you were going to have to carve out your own thing, and there wasn't another way you were going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I think there's a lot of solos who are hanging on in the criminal defense field, certainly in the PI field, thinking, I just need that one case. That
Yeah.
one case is gonna make everything better for me. That one case will come in, I'll be able to work it, I'll make $100,000 or $1,000,000, and then everything is gravy after that.
Mm.
And I held on to that for the longest time. I thought, okay, this is the way I need to do it. If I just hold on, I can make it. And I just knew that I I had the benefit of seeing that being a lawyer is a long career, and there are ebbs and flows, and maybe I was in an ebb period early on, but if I just kept my head down and kept working, I was gonna achieve something. And I had a lot of lucky breaks. I worked really hard. I mean, you know, you work 7 days a week.
Mhm.
25 hours a day. That's what
Mhm.
you do when you're trying
Mhm.
to run your business. And I tell
Mhm.
people that, you have the side, what you have to think about if you're gonna do this is that you have the side hustle of being a lawyer, but your full-time job is running a law firm.
Mhm.
And the side hustle is getting you to be able to afford to have your real job of running a law firm. And so you really need to say it's going to take me a long time to get where I need to be, but it's worth it because that's what you really want. I wanted
Yeah.
the flexibility of being self-employed. I wanted the security of knowing I had revenue that was going to come in on a weekly basis
Mm.
by the types of cases that I was doing. I didn't want the sort of lifestyle of a PI lawyer that works a case for 18 months or 3 years before they get a payoff. I like, cash coming in every week. That's the
Mhm.
kind of lifestyle that I like, and it has helped me get to my point. And am I going to get those bell ringing verdicts that a PI lawyer gets. No, I'm not. But that's the life I've chosen, and I'm okay with it because I have other things going for me that they don't have. So it's you have to know what you want and what you're willing to give up to be able to achieve the type of law firm that you want.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So you started humming maybe at 6 or 7 years. And well, actually, wait, one more thought that I just want to share with you, because I don't know if you have thoughts on it or not. Everybody, what I've noticed is we talk a lot about playing the long game, not the short game. And everybody that I notice that I end up having on this show, they all play the long game. No one is in it for quick wins. I mean, maybe here, but you know what I mean? Like you're going to build what you want to build. You are in it for the long haul. You're playing the long game. And that sounds like it made me think of that as I was listening to you talk, that's the game you're playing. Like you knew what you wanted. Yeah.
I know what I wanted. I mean, I knew I was going to be a lawyer for 50 years. So I don't need to make all of my money in year 2. I'm not a manufacturer who's making a widget that someone's going to take to overseas and rip off or improve upon. My brain is what I can sell, right? So, if I get into a pattern where I'm getting a steady number of cases, I can ride this, and you increase your profitability per case, you increase your case volume, you can do all of those things so that you are able to really get to where you want to be systemically. And that's what I was able to do. So I don't think I built myself a job because I don't have to do the grunt work anymore. I could, I could tomorrow, I could say, closing my office, I'm firing everybody, and I'm going to take 2 cases a week, and I'm going to charge, $10,000 a case or whatever. And we've got 100, leads coming in a week. I could find some people that'll pay me on the high end. And I could survive that way if I wanted to still be in the daily grind of being a lawyer. But I don't really find pleasure in that anymore.
That's simple grace.
People like that who never did it, right? I mean, he's still undefeated. He had his one trial, of a speeding ticket or whatever it was. I did the grind of being a lawyer. I did it for 15, 16 years, getting verdicts. I lost 17 trials in a row at one point. And that weighs on your soul. So I have the chops. But I also know that, I don't have to do the same thing for my entire career. I could start off as a bartender. Then I could be a lawyer for a couple of years. Then I could be a trial lawyer. Then I could be a law firm owner. And I could be a marketing agency. And I could be a coach for people. I could do a lot of things. I don't have to stick with one thing just because I have a JD. I could always go back to it. And so that's the path I'm choosing right now.
Yeah. So great. Okay. So 6 or 7 years you were humming, and then you ended up getting a couple of associates so by 10 years, there were 4 attorneys.
Yeah.
You mentioned that there was a point in your journey where if you had to point to it and say, that's the unfortunate middle, like you could do that. What are some of the biggest lessons that came out of it? Like you won't repeat something because of what you went through, because of how you handled it, because of how you operated. Like what are the biggest lessons learned, either for you and how you operate or how business works and how something needs to be handled?
So my story includes a really unfortunate time, 2002, 2000 and through 2002, 2005-ish, where I was in practice with my father. He had a successful general criminal practice and for years had represented a number of people, including some people who the feds were looking at. And when he was representing a gang leader, he needed to get some information about some people who were described in a police report that were blacked out. So they knew the make and model of the car, they knew the house, but the name of the person was blacked out in the police report. And so he went to this gang leader and said, hey, I'm trying to figure out who these witnesses are. Who can I talk to who's still on the street that might be able to identify these people that are going to testify against you, because that's important information from a defense lawyer's perspective. So that one gang leader told him, well, there's another gang leader that you've also represented that might be able to help, and we have a good friendship. So he'd helped me out. So my father went and saw the other former client and said, hey, look, I'm going to give you these papers. Take a look and see if you can figure out who these people are, right? Well, unbeknownst to him, that second gang leader was also under investigation by the FBI. When the FBI arrested that second guy, they found all of this paperwork from my father's file and a letter to the gang leader saying, hey, can you help me out identify these people? So even though there was no rules prohibiting the disclosure of that information, there was no protective order or anything like that, the FBI created an investigation into my father. And in order to extricate himself from the crap he was facing, that second gang leader said, oh, by the way, Jim Ruane asked me to kill somebody, and I did it. And so my father became the target of a murder for hire prosecution, which essentially eviscerated our criminal practice at the time. This was in 2002 through 2005, because once you become the target of a federal investigation, you have to, number one, every client has to sign off on the fact that they know their lawyer is under federal investigation. They know their lawyer, is facing life in jail. They know and they're waiving all of those defects. Well, that sort of destroys a criminal practice, because nobody wants to hire the lawyer who they think might sell them out. And nobody wants to have the lawyer who is otherwise focused on his own life and career and protecting that. So we went from a burgeoning criminal defense business to the phones didn't ring for 6 months. So I already went through an experience of COVID back in the early 2000s, where the phones dried up, the business went away. And that's when I did that pivot into DUI, because number one, they were conflict-free cases. There were no co-defendants. And number two, they were suburban people who weren't necessarily reading the newspapers or on the street to hear about the issues with our office. Fast forward, 5 years, the feds close the investigation and say, yeah, nothing's happened here. You were not part of this murder investigation, this murder for hire. We're going to let this thing go. But in the meantime, my father, spent his entire retirement fund on defending himself. We lived off of some of it for a while because we had no money coming in. So it was a real challenge for us to get through that unfortunate middle, I guess you could say, and really sort of build back a practice from nothing. I actually had a girl I was dating break up with me over it. Like she couldn't, all right, I'm much better now. My wife is amazing, but when you're 26, 27, 28 and you're going through that stuff, and you're thinking, what the hell did I get myself into? I should have just been a stockbroker like all of my friends. Who knows where we can go, but the unfortunate middle teaches you to appreciate what you've actually accomplished looking back in retrospect. I mean, I built a firm up from the ashes, and one that is still well respected, and we still do great things, and we've done great things for a lot of people who really needed an advocate. We've walked multiple people out of jail on life sentences by overturning their convictions. We've created some case law that's very favorable to defendants across the state of Connecticut because we have worked hard at it. Money is a motivator, but it's not the only motivator. Sometimes I like to stick it to the man. Sometimes I just want to help people, and that's really the most important thing. So that it's a lot to get to the point where I am today.
Yeah. And without those trials, it's hard to appreciate really what success feels like. Because if it's just what like you don't ever have the bumps, then or the valleys, then how are you supposed to even know what a peak is? Like you're always
absolutely
cruising and smooth. It's weird if someone doesn't have trials, but that's a biggie. That's a good story now. I'm sure now that wasn't then.
It's a story now. Yeah,
Well,
you need, the reality is, and I've said this before in other presentations, is that nobody goes to Disneyland to ride the tram around the parking lot. That thing that
mm,
just goes around, don't really do much. People go to Disneyland for the roller coasters, and the roller coasters require you to have a down to get an up. And you got to go around some sharp curves, and you got to hold on and grit your teeth and get through the next dip.
yeah,
But it's what makes this all worthwhile, because
yeah,
I if I wanted to pick one of those lives of just the same thing day in day out, no exhilaration, I could have done that, but it's just not who I am. But there's
yeah,
a lot of people who love that. They love the
yeah,
security. They love buying the timeshare and going to the same place every year, the third week in January. That ain't me. But if
yeah,
it's you, God bless you. Live your
yeah,
best life. I'm all about
yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah, no, fair. I have a good friend who is wildly successful, and she has this thing. She says it's always 50-50. Life is always 50-50. It doesn't matter how much money you make, it doesn't matter. It's different and your perspective changes and all that, but like half the time you're frustrated and dealing with things you don't want to be dealing with and annoyed, and then half the time you're super pumped and
Yeah,
blissful about all the things that are happening. And I think it's interesting to think about. I think people assume that success is going to make your life happier, and I like it's part of life. You're gonna experience things that you weren't expecting that are not fun. And I guess the better you get at managing those things, those times, the faster you can move through them and get on with
yeah,
it.
you're gonna experience them.
Yeah.
That's gonna happen no matter what. And it really
Sorry,
becomes
I don't know. Everybody's gonna experience the FBI raid. Holy heck.
yeah, but you know what? I mean, other people experience, their
Yeah,
parents
yeah,
dying of COVID, right? I
yeah.
didn't have that.
Totally.
I mean,
Yes.
it's interesting. I whenever a tragedy happens, like there's a school shooting or something like that, I think to myself, wow, I haven't experienced that. I don't know
Mm,
what that's like. But there are things that I've experienced. My uncle Kevin died of AIDS in 1987. He was
yeah.
one of the first 100 people diagnosed with AIDS in California in the mid 80s.
Mm,
And he did all sorts of. So I have that personal experience that other people don't have. Today, we're
yeah.
taping on World AIDS Day. That's why it came to mind.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's
Wow.
it's been. I mean, it's been a long time since my uncle Kevin has been around. And I
Uh-huh.
and I miss them.
Yeah.
I think about them. I think about them often.
Mhm.
But that's my life journey, and my life journey is going to be different from your life journey.
Yes.
But the
Yes.
reality is that we have to find the pleasure where we can, because there's plenty of opportunity for pain. So if you can find
Yeah.
the pleasure points and hold on to them, whether it's enjoying a hot cup of coffee in the morning as the sun
Yes.
rises, or a late night movie with your friends where you're laughing your ass off, run to it, grab it, and go for
Yeah. Oh, that's a good quote.
it.
I like that. That there's plenty of opportunities for pain, so you gotta grab the
Yeah.
pleasure
And I
points.
mean, and
Yeah.
quite frankly, if you spent your entire day, you could spend your entire day thinking about all the things that make you miserable. You get
Yeah.
nothing done, and it would fill
Right.
your day every day,
Right.
all day.
Yes.
So, I say try to avoid that. These are the problems of the living. I'd rather be on this side of the grass than the other, and just try to be optimistic, because it could always be worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you also, I think, kind of pointed to the unfortunate middle when you're talking about uh like turnover with your
Sure.
team or your staff. Like so that chapter, whatever that was like for you, what came out of that? What did you change, or how do you think differently because of what you went through?
So I have a very systemized practice, and we have methods that people are supposed to handle their cases, and because of that, and because of the type of law that we do, our margins are on the lower side. So I can hire people right out of law school, give them great training in how to do things, but I haven't always been quick to accelerate their raises, because money was tight, and I'd rather spend it on building the business than the employees. And a number of employees have left, because they've been able to work at my firm for 6 months or a year and then jump to another firm for, you know, a $25,000 raise, because now they have all this experience that they didn't have coming into me. And so I've recently started over the last couple of years reevaluating my compensation plan, because when I have somebody good, I don't want to lose them anymore. And I want to have the stability. Whereas before, when I was in the practice more, I was just, you know, okay, so we're losing that person that covers that courthouse. No problem. I got it. Dump it on me. I'll take care of that courthouse 2 or 3 times a month. And I don't have to worry about them leaving. Now, in retrospect, there are some people that I wish I had kept around. That, you know, when people would come to me and leave, I'd say, all right, that's cool. See you later. You know, I'll find somebody else to fill your shoes. But, you know, that isn't necessarily conducive to building a firm that can grow on. You sort of max out when you have so much turnover. You max out what you can do with your firm because you're constantly plugging the holes in the boat. You're not able to actually direct where you want the boat to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So restructuring compensation, is principle wise, like we don't have to get into the numbers. Principle wise, is there something now that different things work for different firms? Certainly. But is there something now that you operate on a certain principle when it comes to compensation that you weren't before, and now this is how you do it, and this is why?
So ideally, I'd like to be a little bit above market for the talent that they're bringing to the office, because I think, you know, if you're in a situation where they are making a little bit more than they would make in another job, that might appeal to them more, but they don't hate this job, and they're good at what they do. I'd rather them stay because they're not going to get the exact same amount of money. And it's amazing how some people will stay for the difference of $2,000 a year, because you know, they live in a world where it's, I can't make any more. And I can go on and on about, you know, trying for 15 years to get associates to generate any amount of revenue. I don't think they can. I haven't found any attorney that works for me that is able to generate the amount of income that I can, just on my referral network. And I said, you know, talk to your friends, talk to your family, let them know you're a lawyer, get them out there. And it's just not their mindset that they have to generate money. So if they know that they're not going to generate money and they don't believe that they can, if I could pay them just a little bit over market, it actually makes it easier for me to keep people from leaving. Whereas before, I might be, you know, $10,000 or $20,000 under market, saying you're just a widget. If you leave, I'll plug another person into your shoes. But then you have the headaches of having to retrain them and do all those things. So my thinking on that is something that I actually got from Seth Price, and my thinking on that has evolved, I guess you would say, over the years.
Okay, yeah. Are there any, I just mentioned like what principles do you abide by now? There's a more general question I have about principles or philosophies. Do you have any general principles that guide you, or philosophies that you just stick to? They're always top of mind for you for some reason, and it's just a way of operate, like a personal motto or mantra, or like, I don't know. Does anything come to mind when I ask that question?
Not particularly. I mean, at the end of the day, as a criminal defense lawyer, I am, and I hate admitting this, but I'm willing to do the trials and do the work for free to keep somebody from being screwed over by the system.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to say when you're in the business of selling legal services that you'll do the work for nothing. But I truly believe that if I can follow my upbringing, you know, be a man for others, put myself in a situation where I can be the, you know, that blocker, that person who says, you're not standing up alone. I'm going to fight, you know, for you and with you. And in order to get to you, they got to go through me. That's, you know, because I've learned over the years, we should never define people by what they did on their worst day. Absolutely, we should punish them for the things that they have done. And I have represented some really, really nice people that have murdered people. And I have represented some giant assholes who speed all the time. And
Mhm.
I don't think you can say one is a better person than another. One has done something worse than another for sure. But, you know, we can't define people by what they did on the worst day of their lives and throw
Mm.
people out. I don't think any person really truly is disposable, and
Mm.
that's sort of the guiding north star in my life, that we can find something of value in every person, even if they have to spend the rest of their life behind bars. They still
Mhm.
can contribute to our society in some way.
Mm. What a unique perspective you and criminal defense attorneys must have, just because of what you see day to day, like, and the people you meet, and just like you're saying, they're good people, they're nice people. They're, but, they had their worst today, and
Yeah.
that's a really interesting that perspective alone, I mean, that's probably just how you run. That's like you operate from a perspective because you were so influenced by clients and your work with them that would do a lot of good for people to adopt. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. I've been around the criminal defense business for a really long time, and I really wish, like, they would make prosecutors spend a day in a jail so that they can see what the living. It's very easy for somebody to give a give a jail sentence as an offer on a case. Oh, go do 3 years in jail. Go do 10 years in jail. Go spend a day in a jail and see the living environment that a person in jail has to live in. You may not be so casual throwing it out. You may be. You may say,
Right.
this now that I know what it's like, it warrants it for sure. But there's a lot of people in the criminal justice system that are displaced from the impact on the defendant,
Mm.
and so they can sit in an office somewhere. They can sit in chambers. They can sit at a bench. They can put on a robe and just pronounce what someone's life should be for the next decade or so, without really knowing the true impact on on a person of what
Mm.
jail does. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't go to jail. I'm not one of those people that doesn't believe that people should not be penalized for anything. I think jail is an appropriate place for some people for some of the
Mhm.
things that they do. I just think that it's too easy for a person who's never experienced it, who grew up and went to law school and may not have experienced any sort of adversity in their life, to then sit and pronounce, oh, you have to go live in a jail for even a weekend,
Mhm.
without having to know what it's truly like inside.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah. How often do you get affected by your work? Like, I'm sure that there's some sort of callus that you have to build, but
Mhm.
yeah, how often do
It's
you just think,
it's
"Man."
every day.
Okay.
It's every day. I
Mm.
mean, I live with it every day. There was a client that I had years ago. I won't tell you his last name. His name is David. I was temping as a public defender, as in a local courthouse, for $100 a day. He had a number of accidents, and I got him out of jail. And that night, after getting him out of jail, he went out drinking and driving, and he killed somebody. And
Mm.
so if I had not gotten him out of jail, I he would not have killed that person.
Mm.
He's still doing time right now for what he did, and he's not out of jail yet, and it's been a long time.
Mm.
Um, and I look him up every so often to see if he's still locked up, and that's a case that I think about almost every day
Mm.
of my life. I will think
Mm.
about that case because
Mhm.
my actions when I thought I was doing the right thing at the time, and if you put me back in my shoes right now, I probably would still argue to get him out of jail. I can't control what he does or what he did, but these things, they do live with you.
Mhm.
And I also have had clients who, I've counseled them about how their cases are going to resolve, and then don't hear from them for a couple of days. Send somebody to do a welfare check, and they've committed suicide. I mean, that stuff's happened.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's unfortunate that it weighs on you, but it's the role that I've chosen to fill, of criminal defense lawyer, and it's the life I've chosen. I have to live
Mhm.
with those lumps because that's who I am, and I can't just avoid the hard conversations with people and the hard tasks I have to do because other people might be affected by it. I have to do my job as a zealous advocate.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. Um, you, I mean, you have your firm. How many businesses do you own right now? Maybe just two. Two. I know of two.
Three.
Three. Okay.
I mean, if you take let's take my investment properties as one. So it's one, the agency, the law firm, and then I have a software that thing that I'm developing. So four.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I have an idea for another one.
So firm, your
I have a
firm,
law
and then
firm.
Firm
I have
Flex.
Firm Flex, which is a social media marketing agency. I have Finalize, which is my automated daily coaching software, which sends you daily messages about how to of what things you need to accomplish the next day. And then I have some real estate investments. Basically the some offices that I bought and I'll rent to my firm or other firms. And then I've got some residential real estate, the houses that I've owned that I've moved on from, but I've kept and put tenants in, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And then I have another idea for another business that I'm talking about now, but that's total. It's two. One is an idea for food. Oh, they're both food related. One is a mail order food thing, and the other one is a ghost kitchen.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Okay, I have a question about what was the order? So your firm, what was next? Did you start?
Firm Flex.
Flex.
My firm. Then I started getting into real estate.
Okay.
Then Firm Flex. Then more real estate. Then the software, and the two food businesses are probably on the radar for 2022.
Okay. And then when did you start Firm Flex?
Firm Flex started in September of 2019. We launched strong, and then COVID hit us like everybody else.
Yeah.
And so it's now starting to get the ball rolling. Yeah.
Okay. Having that been the second business that you started, even though you have business and real estate, did it happen? How much more quickly do you think it happened because this was not your first rodeo?
For revenue wise, we hit six figures in the first year, and it took me probably like 3.5 years to get to six figures with my law practice. Actually, it probably took me longer than that to net out that. So revenue wise, we were able to get there a lot faster. I think biz ops. Since I have all this business experience from running my firm, we started with a tremendous head start. So, we started building our systems before we even launched. We had a PEO from day one. I knew how to set up credit card processing and all that stuff. So that really accelerated so much faster than anything else.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, go ahead.
It took a couple iterations. I mean, the idea for Firm Flex originally was an online course of like a 90 series online course of how to do everything on social media. And really what we have found is that people don't necessarily want to learn. They want it done for them.
Yeah, totally.
So we have our do-it-yourself program that is continuing to generate income and has a devoted following that continues to grow every year, and that's great. But what we found with Firm Flex is getting away from the DIY stuff and just getting it done for people has given us our best opportunity for growth. Our latest thing of setting up social funnels for people has just exploded since Max LawCon. I mean, it's just, cool. We're getting, one or two signups a day sometimes for people who want social sales funnels because we know how to set them up. We can do it, timely. We give you everything. We've already written, 14-page, 15-page ebooks that'll get, slapped with your logo and your cover on it. So we can turn things around really quickly. And it's all stuff that we had learned in being at Ruane Attorneys.
I don't know if you're going to be comfortable answering this or not, but it's a question that hit my brain is how did you build the technology to deliver like the first product, so to speak, of FirmFlex that came out. Did you build the technology or did you use a technology? And if so, what platform to really help you guys? What did you
My
leverage
brother
in
built
order
it.
to deliver? Huh?
My brother built it.
Oh,
Yeah, my brother
wow.
built it.
Cool.
We yeah, so we we leveraged some of the technology of the Facebook platform itself with groups.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But my brother actually automated it all using ActiveCampaign, Yeti Text, and a number of different softwares. But he put them all together in a way to develop our DIY stuff, and that was really our first big product was the DIY thing, and then he's built on a new platform for our social super system, which we've rolled out. That is also an amalgamation of a number of different technologies, so that you can log in. We give you the options of what you can paste to your different platforms. You can go in. We have a Canva style editor, so within our platform you can go and you don't have to go off to Canva, do your image, come back to us. It's all right there, which
Cool.
is kind of nice, so that it's kept in one spot.
Yeah, definitely. Um, and so you recently, as of this week, you have a newfound freedom, should you
Yes.
choose to accept, which you're going to, um, to be the visionary, like that's where your head is the
Yeah.
majority of the time is
And
visionary work.
it's really difficult for me
Uh-huh.
to embrace that title.
Right.
I understand that I'm the boss. My people, will refer to me as boss. But if I take one of my attorneys to a seminar, I don't introduce them as, oh, this is my associate. I usually tell people, oh, we're coworkers, right? I don't like to have the pretension of a title. So accepting, even though the lawyers underneath me have said, no, we work best when you think of things for us to do that we can execute, because we can execute, but we can't think of it. You need to get out of the weeds and start thinking about how to take our vision forward. You need to be our visionary. And just calling myself a visionary seems so pretentious and
Oh, really?
I can't stand it. I
Wait,
feel
tell me why.
flawed.
What is wrong with that word? Like why pretend why does
I'm going to start
pretentious come
walking
up?
around in flowing robes. I am your visionary.
Oh, oh
Yeah,
my God,
it's
there's like a
also
mental image
I'm
you
no
have associated with
visionary. I'm no visionary. I'm just a dude with a couple of ideas. I'm no
well,
fucking visionary.
what
That's
if
ridiculous. I'm gonna
I mean,
come in and
okay.
grow my hair in long robes, some sandals,
Oh
and
my
I'll
God, that's
stick
so
to you from the
funny.
mountaintops. No, I'm no visionary. I'm just a guy who's got a lot of ideas.
Well, okay, so that's funny. It's just an association that you have that I've never had that association. That is so funny. Like when I think of a visionary, I just think of the idea guy, like period, or girl, like
Yeah.
that, or woman. You're the one that's supposed to, like, somebody for the company has to be forward thinking and can't just be in the weeds. So that person has to be, that's their job
I
is
just hate the
to,
word visionary. It
well,
just
I think you should
sounds.
change it.
So what do
For
we change it
you, who cares? Like make up a different word, like
to?
uh uh
But see, that's
because
the
I'm
thing.
just
What
the
word do you
boss.
call it? Like,
Well, I mean, I would be funny with it if you're gonna change it to something funny,
yeah,
like,
maybe that's the thing. That's what I need to do. I mean, the reality is that I'm definitely not the integrator.
yeah,
And I know people. I know it comes from EOS, attraction,
yeah,
all these words and things. What are your
yeah,
docs?
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a lawyer and words have meaning,
yeah,
and creating something, entitling myself. I'm just Jay, man. I'm just Jay. I'm trying to be like. I can remember being, in grade school and in high school. I didn't want to be an actor because I felt uncomfortable being something I'm not. I am
yeah,
me. I am me. I'm no visionary.
yeah.
I am just me trying to find my way through this world.
Like if I was doing your accountability chart instead of visionary, which is oftentimes like what's written up there, I don't know, idea man. Like that's what you're supposed to
Yeah.
do. That's your job. Idea man. It's not
Idea
visionary,
guy.
it's
Yeah,
idea man.
that's that. I could live with that.
Yeah, and
I can
then
live with
you
that.
would live fully into that entire
Yeah.
yeah, you
So
would
it's just, but it's like, is that something that's compensable? I mean, I guess it is, but how many ideas does a law firm really need?
No, it's not about it's not about that. It's more about, well, there's probably two pieces. Are you still working to bring in business as well?
I mean, business comes in,
Okay.
my
It doesn't
marketing
rely on you.
director reports to me,
Yeah.
and I come
Okay.
up with ideas left and right. And
But it's not like you aren't going out and getting business. You're using the internet and
yeah, I'm using the
referrals.
internet, my existing relationships.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can, if I wanted to tomorrow give a speech to the Connecticut Bar Association about new DUI laws, I have a relationship with their CLE director.
Yeah.
I can be in their calendar by Friday and be speaking to 75 people in January 2nd by
Yeah.
giving time to promote it. So I have those relationships. And I still do those types of presentations. I'm actually working on one now that I think can build some brand name for my firm nationwide, which I think could help. And it's all about how a systemized firm is an ethical firm. And I'm going to try to use that to go after bar associations that have attorneys that need ethics credits, because it's really law practice management in the guise of an ethics lecture.
Yeah.
So I've put that together, and I've got some interest from the National Criminal Defense Lawyers already and some other organizations to come in and do a 1 or 2 hour presentation on basically how to ethically build systems in your office so that you don't get jammed up by bar counsel or grievance committee. But it really is all about how to systemize your firm.
That's good. That's genius. Okay, the other thing I wanted to say, just if it's helpful, you could let this roll around your brain. Your ideas could be for the future of the firm or like big moves, but you could come up with all kinds of ideas to improve the quality of life inside of the firm, for culture, so that here's the thing. Most firms don't have someone that will give any time to thinking through the barriers that the firm is experiencing. And to me, that's the idea person. So sure, your ops people probably recognize like the barriers or the inconsistencies, things like that. But your brain is probably really good at coming up with ideas that they need to implement in order to create a better firm.
So, okay, so here's one of my latest ideas, right?
Okay.
This just came to me in the last 2 weeks. We get hired by people who are at a very stressful point in their lives, and most of the time when we get hired, we'll open up their file, and so we send them an automated email saying, hey, or text message, we've opened up your file. We're on top of things now. We will reach out. We'll be in touch. This is the name of your lawyer. They will reach out to you when it's necessary. And then inevitably we've got like a 10-day period where like we've sent out our request to get our discovery, and we're waiting for stuff. So there's no real reason for a lawyer to call their client at that point, because the client's going to have questions and they literally have no answers.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
So what we did is we took our CRM and we're programming it so that we had each attorney record a voicemail message that's basically, hi, I know I'm your attorney. Listen, I'm going to be in touch with you in about 10 days. In the meantime, I don't know anything yet. I don't have the police report. I haven't seen the charging documents. So I know you're stressed out. I know you want to hear from me. And trust me, I'm going to be on it. But I just wanted you to hear my voice, know I exist, and know that I'm on top of things, and I'll reach out as soon as possible. And so what we found a company that can do ringless voicemail distribution. So our CRM is going to automatically, when we open a file, it gets assigned to a lawyer, is going to deliver that voicemail message to the voicemail of the client without it ringing. So all of a sudden they get a voicemail from their lawyer, which says, you don't have to call me back. I don't want you to call me back, but I'm on the case, so that they just take that anxiety off of themselves.
Yeah.
Because now they've heard the lawyer talk to them. And so it's real that there is a lawyer that's looking out for them. And so that was one of my latest ideas.
Yes.
I think it's going to work, and it's going to reduce that, 7 days in, I haven't heard from my lawyer yet phone call.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I told you a week ago you weren't going to. But I know for you, you're really stressed, so you need some sort of reassurance. We're gonna hopefully end that by sending this ringless voicemail out to our clients.
There, you know, so any that is an idea that strikes the win-win-win. Like I think of things, I try to get people thinking through like win for the client, because obviously it's a better experience. They know ahead of time, expectations have been set. So that makes a better experience for the client. A win for the firm, which it saves the firm money because you aren't paying people to deal with the incoming calls asking. And then a win for the team members specifically, that because they don't have to, I'm using the word waste, like in lean methodology, they use waste. So that they don't have to waste their time on things that aren't important. They don't move the needle at all. So now the team member can be really dialed in with what they really do. Like your ideas for your firm and for your, it's like if you have an idea to improve the client experience and it's a win for the firm and it's a win for your team, then it's a done deal. But this is I'm pumped for you to be in this spot. I feel like you'll be an idea generating machine because there's always things to improve and there's always ways to refine and grow and think differently.
Yeah.
So
That's what it's all about. One of my new legal operations leaders, like, look, I'm Tim Cook. You just be Steve Jobs. You just think of things, but you're not going to write code. You're not gonna machine out the shape of the iPhone. You just tell us what to do and we'll get it done. And I'm hoping with my new spare time, my goal is to actually take and next year, 2022, I want to visit one new law firm a month somewhere in the country. So I plan on trying to hit, the guys Grogo Colarulo down in Philly, in South Jersey. Maybe I'll go see Jim Hacking in St. Louis, Billy Tarasio out in Arizona. And my goal is to go and spend 2 days in their office. And if they let me, have them open up a file for me. And I want to feel their onboarding process to see how they do it, to see if we can make it better in our office.
That's cool.
That's my plan. If I can get them on board to have me come in and just sort of hang out with them. And just sort of see how other people do it, because we get into these tunnels where we're doing it. And it may be that if I just do one thing a little differently, we could either increase revenue, increase satisfaction, or decrease frustration. And if we can get one thing out of 12 different firms, I think that'd be phenomenal. It's like I used to do that when I was a young lawyer, when I was really focused on my skills of trying cases and being a lawyer. I was the nerd who, if I would go to California to visit my best friend in LA, well, he's at work during the day, I would call up lawyers I knew and be like, is anybody on trial on a DUI case? I want to come and watch. And I would go to courthouses on vacation in Florida and Texas, California, all over the country on my vacations. I actually sat in on a DUI trial in Bermuda when I was on vacation with my family once, because I wanted to see how other people did it so I can get better.
Yeah.
Same thing by going office to office.
So great. People don't do that enough. Just go shadow, go see what other people, that's so great. I know we're closing in on time, but I do have a couple more questions I want to ask.
Okay.
One is, before this switch that you're in now, where you're going to be moving more into the idea man role, what is the percentage of the time that you were like, what's the brain split for being a lawyer versus being an owner? Before now.
Before this. So I'd say up until that's a good question. So I think by 2017, I was probably 50-50 of being a owner and a active lawyer. 18 and 19, I had gotten that down to being about 35%. Then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, I really sort of threw myself into two roles: the marketing and management and operations side, because I had at the beginning of COVID, courts were closed, so I had lawyers grinding out the billable work that we could do, because we had a small vertical of billable work that we were able to sort of keep the lights on with. And I really became focused on the marketing. And so now that we're coming out, it really has been sort of an easier transition because I almost immediately went to 100% owner, and it was to keep the lights on and figure out. And so everyone else sort of stepped up and said, we got the legal work. You just keep us getting cases any way you can so we can survive this. And so now I don't have to jump back into any legal work except something that I love to do. And so I do one hearing a month for 2 hours on the first of the month. I did it this morning. And I do that because that's just something I like to do and I don't want to give up. But other than that 2 hour block on the first Wednesday of the month, I am 100% out of any legal work.
And so prior to now, you were spending a lot of the 100%, well, marketing for sure when COVID hit. And then as things start to wake back up in the world, did you focus as part of your time as an owner, was most of it on operations and systems and processes? Okay.
Systems, processes, because, a lot of systems changed during COVID. So we had to scrap a bunch. At one point we had 1,500 systems. We got down to 1,200. We're now back up to like 1,300 because we've added a bunch of new ones. So, I was overseeing the operations team, but I was talking to them daily. We did a few things. We actually moved our trustee account to its own QuickBooks account. So it's very clean. A lot of things that I wanted to do to sort of make my operation cleaner and smarter and better.
Like getting your house in order.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because now, quite frankly, if we're able to grow, it's interesting. Before COVID, my firm had about 3% of the available, and we're not just a DUI firm, but that's the number I'm going to use. So 3% of all DUI cases in our state would hire us, which is good, since 50% of people don't hire anybody. So the fact that we have 3% is a pretty good number. Well, the active arrests for DUI were cut in half, but our market share increased to 5%. So now we had half as many DUIs, but we had almost double the number that retained us. If those numbers stay to bear in 2022, we're going to like dramatically increase the number of files we have coming in. And it's this week, especially, it's starting to show that. And I hope, knock on wood, that it continues. And so, we're going to have massive scale in the coming years, massive scale that I hope we're able to prepare for now.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you hire someone or did you move somebody up so that you could be freed up for Idea Man role?
I moved somebody up. I had a lawyer that was working with me that actually had left for a week back in 2018, went to go do insurance defense work, realized this is not the life for me. Although the money was good, he immediately regretted it and came back and said, look, I want to come, but here's my vision. Will you buy into my vision? And I said, absolutely. Let's start working on it. And the plan was, this is the thing that COVID crushed for me in a while. I had been working, part of my vision early on was that I wanted to take the month of July off to be with my family. I had gone so far as to rent a house in July of 2019 on the beach in Charleston, South Carolina. And then COVID hit in March. And so I was pretty depressed at the time because I was like, I've been working my ass off for 20 years. I was 3 months away from achieving and then it got taken away from me. And I was angry and I was depressed. And that put a lot of the vision for the firm on hold because at that point we were just scrambling, trying to keep our doors open. And so, once that happened, the vision that Dan had brought to the firm sort of took a back seat. Now that we're on the back end of this, he is stepping up into the legal operations lead role, which has allowed me to take my Idea Man position. And it was his vision. In fact, we had a State of the Union speech last week where I went over, here's my vision for the firm. And by the way, we actually had our firm, we have a firm photographer and videographer that documents everything in our office for us and does all of our videos. And we actually had a picture of me literally handing a set of keys over to Dan that was part of the PowerPoint saying, he's in charge now. Any problems go to him. If he needs me, he'll come to me. So
congratulations.
yeah, so it's an interesting time.
Yeah. That's so great. That's so great. I'm really happy for you. I mean, you've not, what's happening in my head is you've worked your ass off to get where you are. And a lot of people do, right?
Yeah.
But we're talking to you and it's your story. And I just hear the ability to be able to do that is a milestone in life. And that's really cool.
Yeah. The reality is it's been a lot of work. There were a lot of Friday and Saturday nights where I didn't go out. I mean, I was single for a long, long ass time because I was like, no, I need to go home and look at keyword research. And that was my Friday night. And then Saturday I'd work on the marketing. I was committed to growing the business. And then there came a point where I was like, wow, this business has grown, but I'm all alone. So I need to concentrate on being more well-rounded, and I still need to do that. Work-life integration is always a challenge. I don't believe balance exists. Nobody should work 8 hours, sleep 8 hours, and have 8 hours of family a day, because it's impossible to try to keep that schedule. So if you look at your life, make sure your work and your life are integrated so that you can have the life that you want. That's much more important, I think.
Yeah. Okay, couple final questions. If you had to start a law firm tomorrow from scratch, how long do you think it would take you to lift it off the ground? A range, just because now you have experience.
Well, there's a lot of questions for that. But I would probably say I need to do the marketing to get the business coming in.
Yeah.
Would I be starting from scratch on the marketing as well? Like, brand new website, that type of thing?
Yeah, you would, but you would, and likely you'd have a little more capital than the first time around, right?
Well, I've been thinking about doing that, actually. I've been thinking about just VCing a law firm, like finding somebody who's 4 to 5 years out of law school and saying, I'll put up the money, you hang a shingle, I'll put up the money, I'll do all the marketing and all the operations, you get to just be a lawyer, and we'll split the profit 50-50, and you'll get a base out of that. I've been thinking about doing that for a couple of years now. So that may be in my future.
Oh, that's cool. I asked the question. It is hard to answer, but I asked the question just to see. I mean,
I think I can get it to profitable in a year.
Okay, there you go.
Like generating, mid 6 figures in a 12-month period.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And how many hours a week do you work?
How many hours are there in a week? I'm always thinking.
Well, I know, but I mean,
that's my job. I'm the idea guy. So I'm supposed to be. I'm always thinking about new ideas. So
Well, wait. My question is though, like more about like when are you at work, or when are you on the couch working specifically? Because we were just talking about work-life integration. I agree, balance is for the birds. That doesn't make any sense. But there is an integration, and there is like people I think are striving often to be really present when they're with their family, and so they can be really present when they're working. And so it's not always an easy question to answer, because sometimes it blends and you're on your laptop when technically you could shut it and be more present with your family. And so do you count that as work time or not? But yeah, in terms of you full focus with work, of course it's always in the back of your mind. How many hours a week do you think you work?
Full focus on the business, probably 20.
Cool.
I get distracted.
I had no idea what you were going to say. I was afraid you were going to say 70.
No, because I'll what I'll do is I'll be focused on something for 15 minutes, and then I'll go down a wormhole of something that interests me.
Yeah.
For 45 minutes on Wikipedia. And reading about Otto von Bismarck doesn't do anything for anything in my business, but it allows me to focus it. And I think by being this weird dude who goes down rabbit holes allows me to think. So, I'll sit and I'm including in that, like, I read Entrepreneur and Inc. and, and all of those things. So, and Fast Company. that's work to me. Like I'll sit there on my computer and I will read business magazines. You know, in an afternoon, maybe my whole afternoon today will be reading the latest issues, and I'll take notes, and I'll say, oh, I want to do this or I want to do that. So those are the types of things that I do that are actually on the business. Now I enjoy them, but shouldn't you enjoy what you do anyway? And
yeah, totally.
think,
And well, the other reason I'm glad you said 20 is because I think a lot of people think you get in a grind mentality and you get in a hustle mentality. And what you have to realize as you go up into these different boxes of the business, and for you, idea man, is that it's not about cranking hard for a certain number of hours. And it's more about what value do you bring to the firm. And you're supposed to bring a lot of value, but you don't have to spend a ton of time to bring a lot of value. So it's really great to hear that, though you're always thinking about business and it's always in the back of your mind, but really like focused work, full focus work, 20 hours a week that's awesome. I mean, that's a lot of time actually of generating ideas and hashing through things and getting new ideas from reading. And it's a lot of time that until you give that time, no one else is going to do it.
You should see the back of my office door. I have, I have this thing called the idea quarantine. So whenever I have an idea, I write it down and I tape it to the back of my door in my office. So only I know it's there when the door is shut. And I make it quarantine for 30 or 45 days.
Yeah.
And I'll go back to it. And if I still love it, then I'll say, okay, we should implement this.
Oh,
but I've come up with crazy ideas and been like, a week later, been like, yeah, I should throw that out because I'm never going to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't reject anything outright, because sometimes something that I might have thought about, if I move it, 30 days out, I can say, well, that wasn't going to work, but I can pivot it and this will be a better idea. And then I'll put that one in quarantine. And it just allows me to sort of, get the idea out of my head, but also know that I don't have to chase every shiny object every day.
Yes. I mean, that is what a gift to your team too, because I've worked for the consulting firm I used to work at. The CEO was an idea guy, big time, but would throw them at you as he had them. And then you go work on it. And then eventually it's like, this isn't going to work. And he never even really takes time he never really implements it. Right. Like we tried to give it legs. And at some point you realize there's a cost in that, not just in money, because you're paying people to generate stuff that's never going to be used, but it's also the morale sucks in that, because the work is never really put out into the world. So it's nice, I think, to have a discipline around what to do when an idea hits and not just react to the idea, because it might not be a great idea.
Exactly. I mean, here's a perfect example where I came up with the idea quarantine, right? So years ago, I was like, I went to a seminar. Somebody was speaking about boating under the influence cases. And I said, I'm going to build out the best website for it. I spent weeks. I wrote probably 150 pages of content for a new website I was going to put up. And in that intervening time period from when I got the idea, framed out the website, started writing the content, I sent out a Freedom of Information Act request out to the state, and I got it back 45 days later, having done all of the work now. It's today, okay, now let's just build it and let's go. Connecticut has 2 arrests a year for boating under the influence. And I'm like,
oh man,
wasted all that time.
Wow, yeah.
All that stuff. And it's never going to bear fruit.
Right.
And I'll do other crazy things. Like I think I'm the #1 website right now for bumper car injury. Like I've thrown up websites for amusement park injuries and water park injuries and elevator injuries. I'll throw up stuff like that because I'm like, hey, it could turn into something. And those things, it's like fishing. You catch a case, you refer it out, and then you get some mailbox money down the line, that type of thing. But I definitely quarantine my ideas, and then I come back to them down the line to be able to make sure I'm putting my attention where I get the best results.
I like quarantine. I've heard parking lot before, but I like quarantine better. Idea quarantine. That's good.
It's not mine. I stole it from Matt Homan, a guy who wrote a blog called the Non-Billable Hour
Okay.
years ago, and now he does idea facilitation for small businesses and law firms
Oh,
in St.
cool.
Louis. But I would follow him on Twitter, and
Yeah.
he's a great thinker in the space.
Yeah. That's so great. Man, thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for
This
having me.
is, yeah, this is, you've covered so much. Like, there's usually a question I ask at the end, but you've already answered it through your
Oh,
stuff, which is just like, why do you do this? Why are you doing what you're doing? But you've spoken so eloquently to that the entire time. Like, yeah, you were never going to do it a different way. You were a misfit, so to
I'm
speak.
a misfit. I don't fit in. It's crazy.
And
Um,
you care deeply about
I
the
think I
work
do.
that you do.
I do. I did not fit in law school. I did not feel comfortable in law school. I knew it was a means to an end. Um, I've never really felt comfortable anywhere
Mm-hmm.
in any sort of situation. But when I've started going to like John Fisher's mastermind
Mm-hmm.
and going to things like Max LawCon and being part of communities like that, I've found a place where I feel more comfortable than I have ever felt before. And I know what it's like to feel overworked, underpaid,
Mm-hmm.
underappreciated, not sure if you're making the right decision. And I want to be a cheerleader for those lawyers that are going through this entrepreneurial journey,
Mm-hmm.
because when I was doing it, there was nothing.
Yeah.
There was nothing. And so I would go and buy business books at night and read business magazines and be like, I got to treat this like a business because there's no guidance for lawyers. And so I know what it's like to be lonely and looking at your checkbook and saying, I have $1,500 right now, and that's all I
Mm-hmm.
have in the world. And I got to
Mm-hmm.
pay somebody their salary next week. And I really hope I have enough. And you're scratching your head and you're wondering. So I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm happy to talk to people about how I can help them get over those hurdles, because I don't want you to feel like you're alone and giving up on your dreams, because you can achieve them. You just got to keep working at it. And if
Mm-hmm.
I can help somebody get there by telling my story, sharing a resource, encouraging them to define their vision, I'm going to try to do that.
That's so great. And just to expand and give a fist bump to your point, that is, I think people in the past more than now, but still, they just give up too soon. They switch too soon. If they just would have stuck with it, it's time and learning and sometimes pivoting if you need to, if that's what the market's telling you. But like, just I think that the more cheerleading that there can be now and the way that our world has moved where you can feel more connected to other people, I think people stay in the game a little longer than they would have without that. And
Right.
so people like you offering that is because people see you and they may know your story, but having felt your story and actually lived your story, you had your own version of it's not a cakewalk. And being able to be a cheerleader for others who are going through their own version of it's not a cakewalk and
It's
encouraging
still
them
not a
is
cakewalk.
important. Yeah, no, I'm
It's
not
still
sure that
hard
it ever,
work.
yeah.
That's the thing. It's never going to be a cakewalk.
Well, then
It's
that's
just not.
okay.
So
Yeah,
own it,
yes, I agree with that. That's like the 50-50, right? Like people
right?
think once they start making 100K, then it's going to change, or once they start making 1 million, and then it's going to change. But you're always
Trust
still
me. It doesn't
adjusting.
change at 1 million. It doesn't change at 2 million. It doesn't. It doesn't change at
Yeah.
3 million. I can tell you from experience. You
Yes.
hit those
Yes.
revenue numbers. Guess what? You still have problems. You
Right.
still have issues, and they may just
Exactly.
be different. It could be the
Yeah.
same. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's still there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Um, it's not better there than here. Somebody once told me that, and I believe it. Yeah. Well, thank you again so much. It was so fun talking to you. Will you come back on the show someday?
Absolutely. Anytime you need me, just give me a
All right.
call. I got free
Sweet.
time now, so
That's
anytime
right.
you
You're
want
the
to.
idea man.
Yeah.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Bye.
Bye bye.